Welcome to A Quest for Metal and welcome to another ranking where we're ranking the mighty, rotting Christ Hellenic black metal legends. And, in the coming months we'll do Varathorn and also Sacramentium. No, Necromantia. Not Sacramentium. That's black metal. Necromantia. We'll do the other two, big Hellenic black metal bands as well, which are also amazing. If you haven't checked them out, go check them out because they have amazing albums. I'm not going to spoil what's my favourite for them just yet, because we're here to talk about Rotting Christ. Probably the most famous of the big ones, and one of the best. The discography was really hard to rank, because a lot of these albums are really goddamn good. A lot of them are amazing. There's not really any bad ones, it's just different styles. So yeah, before I get started with my list, pop down below what's your favourite Rotting Christ album, how would you rank them? And let's get stuck in. So, coming in the last place is Sleep of the Angels. That's right, Sleep of the Angels is last place. This is when the band decided to do a more kind of gothic, more atmospheric approach to the music. And you know me, I love my atmosphere. I love atmospheric black metal and even atmospheric death metal, stuff like that. But with Rotting Christ, I don't think it was quite as good as some of their other peers. And, comparing it to some other atmospheric bands, I don't think it holds a candle to them. And Sleep the Angels is definitely not what I want to hear when I hear Rotting Christ, It's just not the sound I like from the band. It's not a bad album by any means, but it's just not the sound I like. So you kind of can tell what the last couple of albums are going to be, but Sleep of the Angels is going to be the first one I mention, which means the next one is A Dead Poem. That's right, this is actually quite a good album for gothic, kind of like doom metal. Very similar to Paradise Lost. Like, you listen to this album, I listened to it and I was like, is this even Rotting Christ anymore? This sounds exactly like Paradise Lost. Like, down to the T it sounds like Paradise Lost, which isn't a bad thing. I love Paradise Lost. But it's Rotting Christ. It's like if Slayer decided to just start doing, I don't know, atmospheric black metal. It'd be strange. It'd be like, whoa, what's going on? you're the thrash metal geniuses. What are you doing? And it's a similar kind of vibe with this one. I do enjoy it. I can throw it on and it's a good time. It's just not the time I want. So although I appreciate the album and I think it's better, than Sleep of the Angels, if you want a pure fucking gothic doom kind of album, check this one out. But if not, if you want some more Rotting Christ fury like the first couple of albums, then go elsewhere. Next up is The Heretics, one of the latest albums by Rotting Christ. I know, I even had this on one of my end of the year lists, I think back when I started the channel. I think I reacted to some of the songs as well. Great songs. I actually quite love it. It's kind of a catchy album. I don't want to say mainstream. It's kind of like a catchy album. But the song on it, The Raven, by Edgar Allan Poe, come on, that is just amazing. I love that they turned that poem into a song, and it's probably my favourite on the entire album. Such a cool song. And it's a cool album, it just doesn't hold my attention as much as some of the other albums. Not quite as fast, not quite as aggressive, not quite as Rotting Christy. So, it is coming lower down. Next to that is The Rituals, similar kind of thing to The Heretics, probably not as, mainstreamy. Not as catchy, but I think the riffs on it are a lot heavier. I think the melodies are better on the album. I think it's more aggressive. It's just a step up from the Heretics in every way, even though it came before it. So the Heretics, I guess, is a step down. But you know what I mean. It's just better in every way, and I'll definitely revisit this over the Heretics. But again, it's not quite my tempo. It's not quite my tempo. Almost there, but not quite. We'll get to that soon. Sanctus Diablos is next, which is always cool to say. This is when they kind of was like, that gothic period, that was pretty cool, pretty experimental. Let's fucking change that shit. Let's go back into, the pure blackened fury of the first couple of albums, and, paid off, because from here on out, these albums, fan-goddamn-tastic. And this one is one of the best. I adore it. Furious drumming, the vocals are insane. It's Rotting Christ like you know and love them, and they are back with a vengeance. But this isn't the album they kind of came back on. The album they did that is my next one, which is Kronos, which is just underrated as hell. This is probably the most underrated Rotting Christ album in their entire catalogue. It is. It's probably the most underrated one. The melodies on here just melt my eyes. My eyes just blank sockets. I adore it. I only just finished listening to it again because I liked it that much, and I'm tempted to pump it higher, but it is where it is at the moment. Really underrated. It's when they went from, Dead Poem and Sleep of the Angels straight into this, back to basics, back to just amazing black metal. It's a little, it still has a little bit of the experimentation in, but nowhere near as much as the other albums. Great return to form, amazing album, I love it. So I think it's pretty much on par, but I think there's like a centimetre difference between this one, which is Genesis. Genesis is next, which is another one which is back to the roots, fast and furious, intense Hellenic black metal, like you know and love by the boys. And it's furious, and I love it. I can't put it higher, though. I can't put it higher, because there's another period in the band which I prefer even more than this middle period. And although I do love Genesis, I don't love it as much as some other people on the Discord. I know what you're going to say. But yeah, no, I do love it. It is great. I do think it's slightly better than Kronos. Slightly. Though I could kind of mix and match them. But one thing I will say is that the album covers for the whole... Well, actually, the album covers for most of their albums are pretty shit. They're not good with the album covers. There's not really a good one between them. But yeah, Genesis, amazing album. And it's back to the roots, just like Kronos. Those two albums... fucking flawless. Next up, we're coming to one of my favourite periods of bands, and this is Aelo. Probably did not say that right, but it sounds like that, so we're going to go with that. Aelo with a kind of warrior, the helmet on the cover. This is my first Rotting Christ album. This is the first one that I listened to by the band, and it was just phenomenal. Phenomenal. The riffs are so catchy on this album. On this album, it's so catchy. This is kind of like a parallel to Behemoth. Both black metal, both kind of went to a more black and death edge, especially in this period of the band, which I loved. The Aelo, and then the one that I can't pronounce, which we'll get to soon. That kind of late to mid period, amazing. Pummeling, the heaviest they've ever been. Like, this album's heavy, but not just heavy, it's catchy heavy, which is hard to do. So yeah, Aelo. It is just one of my favourite periods in the band, and I adore this album. It's one of the first I heard, so yeah, it's coming high. So next up is the one that I couldn't pronounce, which is a bunch of just, Katav. No, we're not even gonna try that. Now this album is even better than the previous one. This has got the first Rotting Christ song that I ever heard. Like the first one ever heard, and I was instantly hooked. So this is... I know Aelo was the first album I heard, but this is the first song that I heard on. Inhuman Zilbaba, which is... They have to make it really hard to pronounce stuff, don't they? But that song hooked me right in. Hooks right in. And I was hypnotised for the rest of the journey. This album is something special. It's a bit moody, still aggressive, fairly long songs. It's eerie as well. It's got this eerie atmosphere. Bagpipes in it. It's kind of experimental. It's all over the place. I love it. I could put it number 1, but there is more that I like. But this album, go check it out. Go check this shit out. So, top 4 now. Number 4, we have Triarchy of Lost Lovers. That's right. The third album by the band. After the 2 classics, they then came on to this one, which is a bit slower, bit more methodical, kind of saw the direction they were going to go with A Dead Poem and the rest of the Gothic stuff. But it's not a Gothic album. I don't know why some people say it is. Because although it's a bit slower and more methodical, it's not Gothic in the slightest. It's still black metal genius through and through. And it still hits hard. And I still love it. I almost put it number 3 on this list. I could even put it higher. But there's one of those black and death kind of albums that I just love so much. And although I love Triarchy of Lost Lovers a lot... the more methodical approach, more moody, atmospheric kind of album, which I think they did it right, because the balance was there, unlike some of the others. But Ferragonia was just too good. Ferragonia is my number 3. This album, it reminds me of Demigod by Behemoth, another Behemoth parallel, but it reminds me of Demigod. The heaviest album they've ever done. Like, balls to the walls, heavy. I love this style. Like, this kind of Black and Death style is just insane, and this album is the best of that era. Like, easily the best. If it was any other band, I could put it number one. You know, any other band, I could put it number one. But we're talking about Rotting Christ here, and they have too many classics. So although I love how blisteringly fast this album is, how heavy it shatters my eardrums, it's two albums which are more seminal and are just better in every way. But what's going to be two and what's going to be one? Let's find out. So number two, Nonservium, the second album by Rotting Christ, the classic, the one everyone has number one and loves, for good reason. It's a bloody masterpiece. And they kind of improved on their style from the debut. It's a bit less raw, it's a bit less moody than the debut, which is why I don't like it as much, but the songwriting's better. It's got those kind of catchy hooks that you'd come to expect on every other Rotting Christ album to come. But it does lose a bit of the atmosphere, I think, from the debut. A bit of the spookiness. That's the only reason it's number two and not number one, because the songs on here, fucking fantastic. Some of the best black metal you'll ever hear on this album. I love it from start to finish. It's a must listen to everyone who's into black metal. Not just the band, but black metal in general. It's a masterpiece. It's probably the one I'd choose people, because it's a bit easy to get into than the debut. But this is the album I'd pick, and I'd be like, you want to get into Rotting Christ? Listen to Nonservium. You're welcome. But yeah, this is my number two, so that means Thy Mighty Contract is number one. And come on, from the art, the classic black metal sound is on this album. This album feels and sounds like A Blaze in the Northern Sky. You know, Transylvanian Hunger, that kind of Sons of Northern Darkness. It has that kind of, not Sons of Northern Darkness, what am I talking about? Diabolical Full Moon Mysticism, that's more like it. That kind of classic second wave atmosphere and edge to it Thy Mighty Contract has. And there's something special about it, which means it's always going to be my number one. It just has a certain spark that the rest of the albums don't. And the rest of the albums are amazing, but Thy Mighty Contract is a cut above the rest. Easily my favourite, no fucking contest. I could put Nonservium higher because the songwriting's better. The songs, argue, are better. But the atmosphere, the mood, the sound, just the feeling on the debut is unparalleled. Thy Mighty Contract, it's the best Rotting Christ album. No arguments. So there we have it, my album ranking for Rotting Christ. What did you think? Let me know down below. How would you rank the band? What's your favourite? What's your least favourite? Argue in the comments. And we'll see you again on another Quest for Metal.